afternoon session. And just so you know what we have left, we have a keynote and a panel discussion, and then we have a cocktail reception. One of the best parts of this hotel is their wonderful LA-style swimming pool. And we're going to have you can go swimming, but we're going to have our cocktail party down there. It'll be dessert buffet and drinks at 5 o'clock, so we hope you join us. It's a great place to experience true Hollywood glamour. And then tomorrow morning, we start at 9 a.m. One thing I wanted to mention, I'm going to pass out for you, we have a promotion from one of our partners where they're going to be giving away an iPhone. Yes, an Apple iPhone tomorrow morning. And this is an incentive for you to show up tomorrow. I'm going to pass out now. Actually, I'll pass it out after Douglas is done. And there's a text message, and you text to the number on there. And they will be doing a raffle. And tomorrow morning at 9:15, right before the AOL video keynote, we will be announcing the winner of an Apple iPhone. So we hope you will show up tomorrow by 9:15. We do offer continental breakfast from 8 to 9, a panel, and then at 11 we have a really fun thing, which is a live focus group, where we brought in about 10 consumers, ages 16 to 40, and we have a great moderator who we've used before, who will be asking them questions about how they use search, how they find content, peer-to-peer file sharing, what type of content they buy, what they steal, and what they will spend money on. It's always fascinating, and that is from 11 to 12, so we hope you stay, and then we follow that with lunch. So I'd like to now introduce Douglas Merrill, Vice President of Engineering for Google.
So it's very hard for me to stand in one place, so it's going to be a little challenging for me to give a talk at a mic, so bear with me. Normally I pace around madly. Oh, we have a handheld wireless mic. Much better. Much better pretending to be Vanna White. Okay, so thank you very much for coming. I'll pace around a lot, which will make the camera guy very unhappy. I want to talk about search and the lessons that we've learned at Google from being in a privileged position to watch the internet grow. I don't particularly want to get up here and give incredibly preachy media lessons. We're a search company. We know about search. You guys, y'all, all know about media. So I'm going to try and talk about what lessons we've learned, and then hopefully some of those lessons will transfer a little bit. We'll see. Google was founded in the late 90s by two graduate students with an idea that seemed impossible at the time: to make all the world's information universally accessible and useful. All the world's information, not just web pages. All the world's information, not just web pages in English. Universally accessible. You should be able to reach them from any channel at any time. And useful. And that's what I want to talk about today, useful. It's quite easy to present data. You can do all kinds of easy steps to just present numbers, no problem. The problem is people don't always know what they want or what to do. And one of the important lessons of the internet is that by making information useful, by putting it in context, by portraying a diverse set of opinions, you give people tools to ask questions and learn things, and you create new content. The cool story about the internet is about democratization of content. Now, people have talked for hours, weeks, years, months, whatever, on what the internet story is. I'm not going to do that because it would be boring to me as well. But all I want to talk about is this idea of the democratization of information. In the past, history was always written by the winners. You got one perspective on the story. What's the difference between a revolution and a civil war? Who won? Wow, no one laughs at that. Everyone out there, everyone feeling okay? That was funny, really. Okay, so one of the cool things that's happened during the growth of the internet is that we've made tools that were easily available, inexpensive, and simple to use, that have allowed people to tell their own stories. Now history is told not just by the winners, but by the participants. The democratization of information has given everyone a voice, but that's created a big challenge for content owners. How do you find that information? How do you understand what it is? How do you get different perspectives on it? Search is the oxygen of the modern economy. Without search, you can't find these incredible amounts and volumes of information being created. Without oxygen, it's kind of hard to breathe. Well, I guess if you're a fish. Well, no, fish need oxygen, you need it in water, right? Come on, gills, work with me, guys. I'm going to keep telling jokes until you start laughing. If you want me to stop telling jokes, start laughing. Okay, very good. I want to talk about interactivity. Before Google came along, there was a very well understood model for advertising. That model was broadcast advertising. All right? Serve an ad, build it once. Distribution's incredibly expensive, so build it once. Try to spray it out there and hope somebody cares. That model was taken onto the internet in the form of display ads. Untargeted, flashing, colorful, kind of interesting, pretty colors, etc. The lesson of that, very low click-through rates. By and large, people didn't care. Let's talk about facts for a second. So, on average, TiVo users skip 70% of commercials. 2 out of every 3 commercials on TiVo are skipped. TiVo users use time-shifting features 109 times during an American football game, which is a lot. Fundamentally, the idea that you're going to be able to use an ad to talk at a consumer is probably over. Our advertising model is a click-through model. It says that fundamentally, for us to get paid, a user has to go do a search, get a set of search results back that are automated and objective. The search results are always clean of advertising. And then we serve ads on the side. If an ad is relevant and a user finds something useful in it, they click on it, and I get paid. Therefore, I'm highly incented to make useful ads. Interaction is the future. Passivity is passé. That's the story of the internet, and I believe it's the story of broadcast advertising as well. I want to talk about a couple of different generations or models of advertising, all continually arguing that passivity is passé, and then I'll take some questions. Kind of the first generation thought on using the internet to promote interactivity, to promote an experience rather than a passive experience, is simply to use the internet to stitch together different kind of perspectives. Google News is an example of just stitching different perspectives together. We are not a content producer. We are an aggregator. We go out and we get brilliant people who write great content for newspapers all over the world, and we put it together in a way which allows users to look at lots of different versions of the same story, different perspectives of the same story, etc. The value here is in allowing people to see different perspectives. The same thing is true in broadcast media. A few years ago, Pontiac realized that it had an issue. It had interesting products. They thought they had, good sales opportunities, and yet the average consumer didn't trust what they had to say. The average consumer didn't believe what Pontiac said. So they went off and did a deal with us to do the following. Let's see if this works. It doesn't work. Okay. Can you use the mouse to click on that, please? There you go. Just click right there.
For 2006, the Pontiac G6 delivers features the midsize imports simply can't. Like a 4-panel panoramic roof, the most fuel-efficient V6, remote start, stolen vehicle tracking, and with the G6 starting at $16,990, the difference is clear. But don't take our word for it. Google Pontiac and discover for yourself how design can make a difference.
So what Pontiac said was, you're not going to believe us if we tell you, so we're not going to bother telling you. You do a Google search for Pontiac, and what you get is a whole bunch of different things on Pontiac. You might get some blogs, you will get the Pontiac official site, but you'll get lots of commentary and reviews. They said fundamentally that the idea that advertising is about me talking at you, me, the corporate entity talking at you, can I have the slides back, please? Talking at you, the consumer, isn't going to work. What's going to work is you, the consumer, hearing from other consumers. That was a very, very effective advertisement, and no, I didn't get paid for playing it right now. And I'm hoping for slides. Now I'm going to start singing and dancing. Hey, what do you know? So those are both interesting starting examples. There are cases where you can use the notion of experience to stitch together different perspectives. The experience is no longer one voice talking to you. It's multiple voices talking to multiple of you, and sometimes you talking to each other. Or maybe you're talking to yourself if you haven't remembered your medication, but something like that. That's a start, but it's not very far. Better yet is actually to take the step into a true experience. So not just talk at, but talk with. That's what we call the second generation. Let others engage with your assets to strengthen your brand. One example on the internet is Google Maps. How many of you use Google Maps? Thank you. Please keep using it. We produced an API, an interface to Google Maps, which allows other people to use the Google Maps infrastructure, data, and computational power to produce interesting content. So this one, we just sort of chose one at randomly, called housingmaps.com, is a guy who took Craigslist listings and so things for sale of sort of random stuff and plotted them on a Google map and allowed you to engage with them. Using our infrastructure, using our kind of brand, if you will, to create his own kind of interesting, exciting, useful site. So in some sense, this cool content, which was built by somebody else and I have no connection to, is serving to affect my brand. In this case, in a positive way, but obviously you could imagine cases where it wouldn't be in a positive way. Step 2 is a generation 2 of this interactive advertising world, is to say, how do I use your own brand, other people use your brands to strengthen them. Here's another example, which is a little more interesting. Disney, in preparing for the Pirates of the Caribbean, it's really hard to see these. I'm sorry about that. I didn't plan for the the thing in the middle here. Used Google Earth, a freely available tool, to model Pirate Island. So they built this model of their virtual world. You could actually go around and explore it. So you go to a website, discoverpirateisland.com, and if any of you have internet links, you can go to it right now. You get a picture that says, what is this? And basically, it is truly a three-dimensional model that you can explore of Pirate Island. And inside that three-dimensional model, Disney put puzzles and challenges and various things. Fundamentally, it's an ad, right? All they're doing is selling what was then an upcoming movie. It's an ad that runs in Google Earth. Google Earth requires a download. Okay, so let's take a step back for context. Remember, TiVo guys are skipping 2 out of every 3 commercials, and Podcast.net did a study that shows that on average, consumers will listen to the first 15 seconds of an ad. Okay, so they're skipping most ads, and the ones they're not skipping, you've got their attention for 15 seconds. This is an ad, right? It's an ad that requires a download. Most people don't have Google Earth installed. Many people do, but not everyone. The download takes time. We had over 100,000 downloads of Google Earth in the first 2 weeks this site was live. Right? So that means there were 100,000 different people who were interested enough in interacting with the Pirates of the Caribbean brand to do a complete download of an application and then explore it. And they ran a contest, and they gave prizes away, and they found a really great amount of interaction with average theater goers with their site before the movie opened. Now, the question there is, what happened as a result? That's an ad, right? It's engaged, or perhaps you could argue it might be marketing. Fundamentally, it's increasing the value of the Pirates of the Caribbean brand. In this case, they did it using Google Earth, but you could imagine doing a lot of other tools for the same thing. The question is, did people go to the site who would not have gone to the movie anyway? So the question is, are you preaching to the choir or not? So one of the problems with the sort of the Generation 2 model is you don't actually know yet what's happening. You get some feedback, you can watch what people do, but you don't actually know how to change what you're doing in response to what they say. Generation 2 is a closed-end world. Disney did not go and change the model of Pirates Island based on what people did as they explored the model. But the cool thing about the internet, and the cool thing about low cost of distribution, is that you can get feedback. You can understand what actually happens when your users engage with your brand. So Generation 1 was stitching together different perspectives and still fundamentally talking at your user, your customer, but doing so from multiple perspectives. Generation 2 is building a world in which your users can experience your brand and engage with it. But Generation 3 is a sort of a more interesting and far more challenging world where your users help you build your content. And there's obviously lots of great examples of this, but one particularly compelling one is Lonely Girl 15. So how many of you have seen a Lonely Girl 15 episode or read about her, etc.? Okay, so Lonely Girl 15 was actually an American-born actress who was paid to build a set of videos on YouTube that were shot in this guy's apartment, but she was pretending to be a 15-year-old girl named Bree. Yeah, I know it sounds a little creepy at that level, but it really wasn't creepy. So, and they built this story about this girl and her conflict with her somewhat repressive parents, and this guy named David that she had this ongoing conflict with. And they built these, and they were amazingly highly viewed. They were released on YouTube. of 200,000, 300,000 views, which is a pretty, for those of you who are kind of in the television market, 300,000 people watching an episode of a television show is pretty good. One of the things they noticed was that all these chat rooms began popping up around Bree, around Lonely Girl 15. She got mail. She got all kinds of people interacting with her. And one of the threads on these chat rooms was, hey, I wonder if Bree and David are actually dating. Well, because she's always kind of complaining about him, and that kind of sounds like the behavior of maybe somebody who likes him. So the author, the person who wrote the episodes, noticed that, and then wrote a series of story arcs about her burgeoning relationship with David. He rewrote his plots to match what the audiences wanted to see. That's rapid feedback. Because the cost of distribution is so low, you're able to not just give an experience to engage your users, but also rewrite what you're going to do to match what they want. This is kind of a cool idea. It's pretty exciting. But think about all the issues that arise immediately. Whose content is it? Did the writer write that content? I guess. Did the users who suggested the ideas write the content? Well, kind of. It's kind of a co-creation. And that's not a model we understand, right? Similarly, what about examples where fans create content about your brand? So, for example, Lost, a very popular television show, a group of fans used a set of tools to build a model of Lost Island and engaged in a bunch of discussion, a bunch of interesting interactions about that, but it wasn't their content. So what do you do in that case? What's the right model in that case? Because of the sort of ubiquity of search, people are able to find that content and engage with it. It clearly strengthens the brand of Lost, right? But it's not their content. So you have all kinds of, in the middle, once you move into the co-creation model, you have all kinds of interesting sort of copyright and fair use and ownership kinds of questions that come to rise. But still, at the heart of it all, you've moved from a world in which you're trying to speak to people who don't care about you to a world in which they care so much about you that they're willing to engage for long periods of time and build almost semi-creepy fanzines about the whole thing. That's an incredible change. We believe that the lesson of the internet is that moving from passively waiting to try and talk at people to engaging with them is going to be the future of ongoing brand management and marketing in mass media as well. But it's not easy to do. And there are all kinds of issues that get between you and getting that done. At the end of the day, content has to get created and it has to get found. Search is clearly central to that problem. And users often don't know what they want. So they may do searches for things, and you may know they want a video answer, but they may not. They may think they want a web page answer. They may think they want a book answer. So one of the problems that you have is the fundamental question of essentially universal search. How do you return all the different perspectives that you have on a question without necessarily knowing in advance what the user wants, or without the user knowing in advance what they want? That's a pretty hard search problem. But fundamentally, we believe that the tools that are emerging from the internet, that are tools that are emerging, that are easy to use, that are freely available, that your users and the people consuming your media now use and understand, will enable you to build environments where you can interact with them in a way that doesn't skip. You can market to them and use and strengthen their brand. Google is not a media company. Google is a search company. We want more information to get created in the world. So we are incented to continue building tools that you folks can use to develop interactions with your consumers, get their feedback, and test out what you get. And with that, I hope you're all awake enough to ask questions. But I really need some water because I'm losing my voice. I can do that.
Great. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, great. Well, let's give a hand for Douglas. Thank you for a great presentation. Thank you. And we'll go right into our next panel. If our 4 o'clock panel could come up to the stage on social search engines and community.